Hello and welcome to Mondays with Marlo. We are very excited today because we have Gloria Allred. And Gloria is such a fighter for women's rights, which you know is near and dear to my heart. She really does care about women's issues. Divorce, marriage, living together issues, sexual harassment, domestic abuse, family law, all that stuff that we get so many questions about. So we thought it would be great to give you the opportunity to ask your questions person to person, right to the terrific Gloria Allred. Gloria, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for having me, Marlo. It's a pleasure.
I'm so excited you're in town and you could visit.
Well, I'm excited to be invited. I'm so happy that you have this opportunity to share you and the issue of women's rights with your viewers.
Well, we want to give information. That's what MarloThomas.com is all about.
You got it.
Giving information. So I'm going to put on my glasses. I'm so vain I don't put them on to the last minute. Let's see here. And we're going to go down to, okay. This is from SSNL. Hi, do you think that women are treated fairly by the legal system? And in your opinion, what laws do you think are particularly unfair toward women?
No, I don't think women are treated fairly by the legal system. And we still have a long, long way to go. I mean, for example, we still do not yet enjoy the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Constitution, that equality of rights under the law should not be denied or abridged on account of gender. And we've been trying to win the passage of the Equal Rights Amendment since 1923, when Alice Paul first proposed it. And that would help all women in all states to enjoy the legal right to equal protection under the law. Particularly unfair, I think, Marlo and everyone else in the law are issues involving family law. The laws are not strict enough yet on ability to collect child support, for example. It's very difficult, and it's the one reason that many mothers are forced onto welfare aid to families with dependent children. It's not that they want to be on welfare, it's just that the laws are not as helpful as they could be in helping them to collect their court-ordered child support on time and in the amount ordered. And of course, even the laws that we have that mandate that children are entitled to child support are often not enforced by district attorneys in the way that they should be. And of course, women cannot afford to be private detectives and cannot often afford to hire attorneys to enforce that right. So we do have a long way to go. And many women in family law often feel that custody laws are unfair to them, that marital property division laws are not as fair as they should be. We have community property, but only in 8 states, community property laws. And I frankly think we should have community property laws in all 50 states, not just 8, so that women know they're entitled to half of the marital property and not just leave it up to the discretion of the court.
Absolutely. This is from Judith. Gloria, you talk a lot about empowerment, yet in the court you often present female clients as victims. Why?
Yes, I've represented many victims, mainly women. We do more women's rights cases than any other private law firm in the nation. And over the 37 years that I've been practicing law now, we've won hundreds of millions of dollars for victims, and most of them have been women, although not all. And often they are victims. They're victims of sexual harassment in employment. So that sexual harassment really is an interference with their right to enjoy equal employment opportunity. And if they have to stop men on the job, their supervisors, for example, from grabbing their butts or their breasts, from propositioning them, from saying sexually lewd things to them, from trying to sleep with them, that interferes with that. So yes, women are often true victims, and then they suffer economically, emotionally, physically, when they are forced to become victims, especially on the job, but also, of course, of rape, of child sexual abuse, and many other inequities as well.
Well, I would think male or female, anybody who needs a lawyer is victimized by something, or else they wouldn't need a lawyer.
Well, that's very true. I mean, and victims have the right to get lawyers and to sue if they have the facts and the law to support their claim. And after all, when you think about it, Marlo, who should bear the cost of the wrong? The wrongdoer?
Right.
Or the victim. And we don't think victims should bear the cost of the wrong. We think the wrongdoers are the ones should have to pay for the wrong.
And they don't?
Often they don't. But so, you know, women often suffer in silence, but silence often favors the wrongdoer, not the victim.
Right.
So we try to break through that silence.
So speak up if you're being victimized by anyone.
Become empowered. And, you know which fights to fight. Don't fight every fight. But some battles are worth fighting, and if you're not sure if you have any legal rights or if it's still timely to assert those rights, you can find a lawyer in your state to consult, and then you can decide what your options are and which ones you wish to exercise.
Do you have a website so people could ask questions of you?
Well, people can go to gloriaallred.com. I also have a book, Fight Back and Win, My 30-Year Fight Against Injustice and How You Can Win Your Own Battles. And these are about some of my famous cases and favorite cases. But at the end of each chapter, there's an empowerment lesson for typical people and what you can learn that can help to empower you in your own life, so that you can find your own strength and your own courage.
But if someone had a question and they wanted to ask you specifically that wasn't in your book and they really wanted to know, if they wrote into your...
They could go to gloriaallred.com, and that'll take you to my website, and we'll see if we can help you.
That'd be great. This is from Denise. She says, good morning, everyone. I was just wondering, as you look back on your magnificent career, what one thing, if any, can you say you'll never forget and always carry with you?
Well, I will never forget and always do carry with me the courage of all the many women that I have represented, because I am every day inspired by their courage. Women of all ages whom I've represented, of all races, of all religions, often they have been completely traumatized by the problem that has brought them to me. But then I see them blossom like a flower. They find the courage to stand up and say, I'm going to do something about this.
That's great.
And then they do. And sometimes we have to file a lawsuit and litigate. Sometimes we can settle the case confidentially. But they decide, you know what, I'm not going to be in the defensive. It's not my fault what happened. I'm going to do something about it. So I am inspired by them. I'm talking about people who are food servers, people who are secretaries, people who are factory workers, sometimes high-level women on the job, sometimes people in between, women in non-traditional jobs, women in traditional jobs. And when they make an impact for themselves, then that has a ripple effect on other women. So that's how we improve the condition and the status of women.
Yes, it gives everybody confidence that there's a way out and that somebody cares about them.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And you know what? When we now have rights for women, not as many as we should have, but we have rights. But unless women enforce those rights, stand up and say, yes, I have a right to be protected from sexual harassment or sex discrimination or unequal pay on the job, unless we decide we're going to enforce those rights are meaningless. They're there to protect you.
That's great. Here's an interesting, this woman's name is China. She says, a regular customer of my employer makes offensive sexual remarks every time I see him. I know that's considered sexual harassment and I would like to do something about it. But can my employer retaliate against me for filing a sexual harassment claim against his customer?
Well, again, I think you should consult a lawyer in your state. That would be the best thing to do. But I do think if a customer on a regular basis is sexually harassing you, and if you notify your employer, which you should, so that the employer has an ability to do something about it to protect you, if the employer does nothing about it and then retaliates against you for complaining of the sexual harassment, you may have a claim that you can assert. And employees are protected from retaliation if they assert a sexual harassment claim. It is against the law to retaliate. And the law protects you in that regard, because the law wants you to be able to complain about sexual harassment so we can clean up sexual harassment in the workplace. And there are some women who are not successful with their sexual harassment claim, but they are successful with the retaliation claim.
Wow.
And that's very important. And courts are very inclined to protect you if you're retaliated against, if you could prove it. Because that is just simply unacceptable.
Here's a question from Marcy. She says, my boyfriend and I are about to get an apartment. His name is on the lease, but I'll be helping out with the rent and putting other money into our lifestyle. How do I protect myself if we break up?
I do think it's very important that you have a written agreement with your boyfriend. And I think when people are living together, it's important to have written agreements in advance of living together, about living together. In other words, what if you break up? What if one person dies or you decide to separate? Who's going to get what? Is anybody going to get reimbursed or not? And that's really important, because it doesn't mean that you're thinking of going into the relationship and then breaking up. It just simply means you're helping to set what the expectations are of the relationship while you're in the relationship and if it dissolves. So yes, I would say definitely important to do that. Personally, I think it's a good idea to have it in a marriage as well. But even if you don't have it in a marriage, at least in a marriage, the law does set the terms of what the contract is in the marriage.
Right.
But when you're living together, there is no such agreement, and that's why it's important for you to get one and write one out with your boyfriend, something you both sign, you both agree on.
That's great. I'm glad you said that. I mean, I'm glad that. So they would have to create it themselves. There's no document for that. They'd have to create that document.
I think it's a good idea because then you at least have something, and may or may not be enforceable, but at least you have a clarification of your intent and expectations.
This is from Tony, a woman. Gloria, I was denied a promotion, and I've learned that the promotion went to my supervisor's boyfriend. Is this sexual harassment? If so, what can I do about it? That's sexual discrimination, isn't it?
It may. Again, since I don't know all the facts, I can't pass judgment on an individual case and say it is or it is not. But definitely, if someone else got the promotion that you should have gotten, and if it can be proven that it was on account of gender, and there's no business justification for it, then it may be that you will have a case of sex discrimination. It's also important to look and see what the employer's policies are. There may be a handbook where that sets forth what the promotional policies are.
That says we can hire our boyfriends over
no,
other
but
employees?
it says, you know, what it's going to take to be promoted.
Oh, I see.
That's all. Or, and it may be that there's a grievance procedure where you can grieve that internally, administratively, in your workplace. So definitely, I think it's something to look into.
And this is from Gail. She says, if a woman suspects her husband of cheating on her, do you think it's advisable to get a private detective or to put any kind of taping devices in the house?
Well, most women cannot afford a private detective. In many states, we have no-fault divorce, so even if he's cheating on her, it's not going to matter in terms of the division of marital property, although in some states it will. So it really depends on which state you're in, because family law, in other words, divorce issues, are state-by-state determination. So you have to look at that.
It would help in a custody case, though, wouldn't it?
Well, it may or may not. Cheating may or may not be relevant, frankly, to the custody issues. In terms of taping, be very careful about that. Again, in some states allow one-party taping. It's perfectly legal. In other states, it's a felony unless both parties agree to the taping. So you don't want to get involved. You may have very good intentions, but remember the old expression that the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
And taping.
And you don't want to be prosecuted for a felony of unlawful taping.
No, a felony would be on your record forever.
It's a criminal act.
This is interesting. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about cases you've done, but in the case of your client, Rachel Uchitel, is that how you pronounce it? Uchitel, the woman who was alleged to have had an affair with Tiger Woods, why did she retain your legal services? Was there some imminent threat from the Tiger Woods camp?
I can't comment on Rachel Uchitel or why any individual client has ever retained me. However, I can say that wherever a woman is involved in a high-profile case, it's always good to get legal advice and to know what all your rights and responsibilities and options are. And because most people have no expectation they'll ever suddenly go from being a rather anonymous person to suddenly in a very high-profile matter, and it's always good to get support and to get advice.
And here's another one. Again, it's one of your cases, but we can't help it if people want to ask these questions. This is from Lauren. Another client of yours, Vanessa Lopez, is suing Shaquille O'Neal for harassment. Generally speaking, what legally constitutes harassment?
Again, I can't comment on that except to say, yes, I do represent Vanessa Lopez in a lawsuit against Shaquille O'Neal. That matter is still pending and is being litigated in Florida. Rather than saying what constitutes harassment, the best advice that I can give is if you have facts that have occurred to you in your relationship, whether it's at work or involving a person with whom you've been having an intimate relationship outside of work or in just a social situation, definitely consult an attorney in your state or maybe in another state, but generally best in your own state, and see whether or not you do have any rights in that particular situation, because any lawyer has to analyze the facts first and not just say, here's the law, and then you're not sure if it fits the facts. Go with the facts first.
This is from Robert. Don't you believe that someone who's wealthy and powerful can be victimized by someone who's not?
Well, yes, people who are wealthy and powerful can be victimized. I don't represent wealthy and powerful people generally. I represent the victims of wealthy and powerful people, the rich and the famous and the powerful. I'm often in the kind of the David and Goliath battles, or as I call it, the David and Goliath battles. Yes, generally I'm representing the woman who's been hurt by someone rich and famous and powerful.
Right.
And then, generally the men come back with some kind of stock answer, oh, poor me. But meanwhile, they've got their army of lawyers, they've got their entourages, they've got their press agents, their managers, their promoters, their agents, and the lawyers. And then there's the typical person whom they've hurt, and the woman has no one. So often she'll come to me, and we try to equalize the power, level the playing field, and let him know she matters. She has rights.
Where does she
and we're going to do something about it.
How does she afford somebody like you?
Well, often, I mean, it really depends on the case, but often someone like me will take a case on a contingency.
Mm-hmm.
That is, the individual woman doesn't have to pay anything up front. She certainly doesn't have to pay anything for a consultation. But then if we take her case, we take it on a share of whatever we can get her. If we get her nothing, she doesn't owe us anything in terms of fees. And if we get her something, then we'd say in advance what the share will be.
Right.
But it really depends on what the situation is, because if people had to pay me, Marlo, on an hourly basis, they would not be able to afford to hire me. So the contingency is a better arrangement for the typical person.
Right, right. Well, I hope you get some wealthy clients every now and then, so somebody pays you that hourly.
I'm not worried about the hourly. We do cases on a contingency. We represent the typical person who otherwise probably could not get a lawyer. And this way, we're taking the risk, but we're only taking the cases where we think they have a good chance of prevailing, and we're willing to take the risk. And we think it's important that that individual woman get justice. And I know that often rich and powerful men are shaking in their boots and saying, oh my God, not Gloria Allred. Well, that's a good thing for my clients.
It is.
Okay, because if she has been hurt and if she has rights to assert, then she should have someone in her corner to assert her rights. And because otherwise, if women don't have anyone, then frankly, a lot of men will continue to trample on their rights and just get away with being arrogant, having a sense of entitlement, that they can do whatever they want to them, however they want, and hurt them and just throw them away like a used Coke can. That's not the way it is for women anymore. They have rights, and women know that they can assert them.
Good. Well, I hope everybody's feeling empowered out there, because I'm feeling a lot better about everything. Okay. This is from Misty. Do you take a client's past conduct into consideration, or is all that matters what they're dealing with at the present moment?
Well, I like to know everything I can about my client before deciding whether I'm going to take my client on as a client.
Right.
But, there is no perfect client. All of us have things in our lives that maybe we wish we had done differently. So I don't expect people to be perfect. I do expect them to be honest with me and tell me, where all the pimples and warts are, where all the problems may be. And I may still represent them. And it really depends on what the case is. I recently represented someone, I can't disclose that person's name, and this person had felonies in his background. But still, he was hurt by a very rich and powerful and well-known person, and he was telling the truth about what happened, and we could prove it. And so we took him on regardless, and we were able to get a very, very terrific result for him. So again, as long as somebody's honest with me, then I can be in a position to help to evaluate their claim.
This is an interesting question. I can't imagine, but this is from MN. I would like to know, are there things that lawyers should not do in order to advance the cause of their clients?
Absolutely.
It must be a long list, right?
Well, Marlo, there are. And all of us as lawyers, we have ethical responsibilities. We have a canon of ethics of our state bar, which regulates how we can handle a case, what we can do, what we can't do. And if we overstep the boundaries and we do what we can't do or shouldn't do, if it's an ethical violation, there are remedies for that, and an attorney can be disbarred or disciplined. I'm happy to say in all of my, about 37 years now of practice, I've never had any kind of disciplinary action against me. We have a great law firm. None of us have ever had that. We all have the highest standard of conduct, and that's what we'll do. And you can be ethical and still get great results for clients, and that's what we do.
That's great. This is from Mary. Do large monetary settlements actually serve as a deterrent for crime, and does it really translate into justice?
That's a great question, Mary. Large settlements, I think, for a lot of people, for men, if they have to pay out these large settlements, and sometimes women do, but we're mainly talking about women who are hurt by men. If men have to pay out the large settlement, that's a lesson to them. Maybe that's a lesson and an education they can understand, is getting hurt in their wallet, and having to pay a large amount may cause them to reflect in the future and say, maybe I won't do that again to a woman because it's going to cost me too much.
Right.
So for whatever reason, it has an educational impact on them. Sometimes women are victims, and they're both criminal cases and they're also a civil remedy. For example, it may be in rape that the district attorney will prosecute a case, and we will also file a civil claim. Sometimes the DA refuses to prosecute, but will file a civil lawsuit or settle it without a lawsuit confidentially. Sometimes neither. So it really depends on the facts. But I believe that women should know all of their options, then they can decide which ones they want to pursue.
This is a good question. This is from Stacy H. What procedures have been put in place on college campuses for a student who alleges that she or he was raped or sexually assaulted? I'm very interested to know if there's something unified on college campuses nationwide.
Well, Stacy, that's a very, very important question. I have probably the key case in the nation going on right now in New York on behalf of the estate of Megan Wright. Megan Wright was a 19-year-old college student at Dominican College in New York. She alleged that she was gang raped in the dormitory Saturday night, Sunday morning at Dominican College, and that she alleged that she was gang raped by two student athletes and a guest. And she complained to the college. She also had a sexual assault rape kit done at the hospital just within hours of the rape, which reflected the fact that she had very severe bruising and trauma to her genital area. And in any event, we alleged that the college failed to do what they are required to do under the law to accommodate her once she filed that complaint, and accommodate her for final exams, make her feel safe on campus. And so therefore she was afraid to go back to the campus, fearing that perhaps the alleged assailants were still there, and she went home and didn't go back to the college, and ultimately tragically killed herself.
Oh.
So this story, if you go to my website, you will see it. Nightline covered it. We were on Dr. Phil, New York Post. It was the cover of the New York Post. And it's very important because we also we alleged that Dominican College was underreporting their sexual assault statistics on campus. I called on Attorney General, then Attorney General Cuomo, to investigate. He did investigate and found that, in fact, they had misreported their sexual assault statistics, and he ordered them, and they settled the case with the Attorney General. We're still in litigation. We have a trial date in October. Bottom line is, yes, there are laws which protect college students. If you have been sexually assaulted on campus, do report it to your college. Also seek the advice of a private attorney, because you have rights that you can assert. They have a duty to help make you safe on campus, and they have a duty to help you if, as and when you report a sexual assault. So yes, there's much more that can be done, that should be done. And watch out for our case, because it's a very important one.
Oh, I hope that answered it for you. I want you to feel safe. I hope you did get what you needed there. How do you find, this is from Judd, how do you find yourself at the center of so many high-profile cases and media scandals? Do these clients seek you out, or do you seek them out? Oh, do you ever see somebody and say, oh, I could help that person? Do you ever go toward anyone?
No, I don't. Again, in 37 years, I've had thousands of people contact me. I still have many people contacting me by email every day. And so we have many, many people in high-profile situations contacting us because they know of our record of success, and they know that I care about women, and if I can help them, I will. We can't help everyone, but we help as many people as we can. If we can't help them, we will try to refer them to others. So they gravitate towards me because they know that that's what we do.
And you're a fighter.
I am a fighter. I'm a fighter for them, and I'm a fighter for change, and I'm a fighter for justice, and I have a passion for it.
Well, this next question is very interesting. This is from Hansen. I don't know if it's Hansen as a man or woman, but they say, hi, Gloria. What I really admire about you and anybody who does what you do is that you have the courage to not be afraid to not be liked. So many people are afraid to not be liked, and that's why they don't stand up for themselves. You're extremely passionate about fighting for the underdog and giving a voice to people who may otherwise not have a voice. And it seems that it goes beyond a professional pursuit and comes from someplace personal. Where do you get your fight from? Where does that activist in you come from? That's a good question.
Great question. Well, because once I was just a little girl from Philadelphia in a row house with parents who had an 8th grade education. And when I was young, I experienced some of the injustices that so many women still suffer today. I was a single parent who was unable to collect her quarter of child support when I was just in college. After college, I was discriminated against on the job on account of my sex. I was paid less than a man was paid when I was an assistant buyer at a department store in Philadelphia. I was a survivor of sexual assault when somebody assaulted me in Mexico with a gun to my head.
Oh my.
I have had so many of these problems, sexual harassment on the job before I became a lawyer. And so I know what it is to suffer as so many women suffer today. And therefore I understand my duty. My duty is to help others while I'm here. It's not to go to the beach and relax, except maybe for a half an hour here and there. It's to help as many women as I can, to help empower them so that each one will help another one, to help another one, to help them to find the strength and the courage to win justice and to become empowered. That's what it's all about. As Gandhi said, you must be the change you wish to see in the world. That's what I'm all about.
That's such a great saying. I love that. Okay, this is from Rodney, and I hear of this all the time. When is it discrimination, and when is it simply we want to have a club that's just for men, or we want to have a club that's just for women?
Really depends, Rodney, which state you're in, which city you're in, and the kind of club it is. I'm the first woman member of the Friars Club, the famous Friars Club that in Beverly Hills I became the first woman member, and then in New York I went to have lunch here many years ago. Actually, I was here to do the Phil Donahue show.
Oh, really?
And I had clients, and this is in my book, Fight Back and Win, and I had clients I wanted to take for lunch at the New York Friars Club, which was all male at the time. They wouldn't let me have lunch there, and they said it was because I was a woman, but I said, but male California friars have reciprocal privileges to lunch at the New York Club. They said, but we don't have any women members, and we're not going to let you in. So I filed a sex discrimination complaint with the New York City Commission on Human Rights, because there was a city law, an ordinance prohibiting private clubs from discriminating against women. In any event, ultimately, the city commission found that I was discriminated against on account of my gender, and in settlement of my claim, I required them to open up the club to membership for women. So now there are women friars in, and I became the first woman to have lunch there, even though Henny Youngman tried to stop me at the door from going in.
Really?
So I just pushed and pushed until that happened, and footnote, just recently, when I did my book signing at the Friars Club from my book, Freddie Roman, who was the dean at the time, came up to me and he said, Gloria, we fought you on the issue with not letting women become members of our club, but you were right. We're so glad you made us take the women, because it's a better club, a stronger club, a more financially stable club, more vibrant, because there are women in it. So thank you for doing it.
That's great. I just think it's so funny that somebody tried to just keep you from having lunch and you changed all the rules.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because, I always consider no just to be an invitation to keep talking until we get the yes.
That's right.
Especially if it's discrimination against women. We're not going to stand for that anymore.
Now, we're running out of time, and I want to get the last few in. This is from Lucille. Is sexual harassment only men harassing women?
No, and I've represented men who've been sexually harassed by other men. We won like a $5 million verdict for a man sexually harassed by another man. We represented a man who was also sexually harassed by a woman boss. We recently represented a man at Vaughn's department, not Vaughn's, actually Vaughn's grocery store chain in California a few years ago. We alleged that he was sexually harassed by a woman boss and then retaliated against because he complained about it.
Wow.
The jury didn't find that he was sexually harassed, but they did find that he was retaliated against for complaining about it. We won, I think it was an $18 million verdict for him. So yes, men can be the victims of discrimination and sexual harassment. More often it's a woman who's a victim, but if a man is a victim, that's also wrong, and we also care about it.
This is from LJ. In general, do you think celebrities get a break from the justice system, or they're treated unfairly?
Oh, I definitely think the celebrities get a break.
Really?
I really think there's a double standard for celebrities, and that they're treated better, and I think it's wrong, because we should have equal protection under the law. that means they shouldn't get treated any better, or they shouldn't get treated any worse than anyone else. I think Charlie Sheen is a good example. I represented his first woman that he was convicted of battery with serious injury, Brittany Ashland, and then of course recently he pled guilty to assaulting his wife, and still he hasn't been ordered to do any jail time, and there's 2 convictions.
And an ordinary person would have been.
Well, I mean, I think on a second time, yes. So, but I mean, this is not right. Celebrities should not get special breaks, special privileges. It should, you know, what justice you get should not depend on how much money you have or how famous you are. And it also sets a bad example. And I do think we need to do more, and batterers need to be put in jail and let them get that kind of education. Think about it before they decide they're going to hurt another woman.
Well, that'll certainly be a detriment, even more than the money.
Well, I think,
go to jail.
you know, I think both. I think victims should be compensated, and I think the batterers should have to go to jail and think about what they've done and think about not doing it again. Otherwise, they might end up in jail or prison for an even longer period of time, because women are really being physically hurt and emotionally hurt by this, and we have to stop the violence.
There's one last question, and it's interesting after just talking about the treatment of celebrities. Charlotte wants to say that you yourself are very well known. So how does that dynamic play out in court? How does it affect you with the opposing attorney, with the judge, and with the jury, that you're already a celebrity? Well,
I think with the opposing attorney, it's definitely an advantage. It's an advantage because they know that of our record of success in cases, and that we've won in California Court of Appeals, California Supreme Court, United States Court of Appeals. We have a lot of precedent-setting cases. And so they know that when we send them a letter or when we file a lawsuit, they better take it seriously, they better give it attention, see if they can resolve it, because we're serious. I mean, I had one case, I went 23 years until we finally got a great result.
Did you really?
Yes, it was Rita Mia. She was sexually abused by 7 Catholic priests and had a baby by one of them,
oh my Lord.
Which we proved, and ultimately the Catholic Archdiocese in Los Angeles finally settled with us. I had another case, AIDS discrimination, which we went on for 16 years. So I'm there for the distance. I'm there for what it takes to win justice from my client. And so I do think attorneys take it seriously when they hear from me. As to judges, I've gotten very good reception from judges because we do have a record of success, and they know we're only bringing cases that matter to them.
So you don't think the celebrity, because you are more famous.
Well, and I think it's a positive because they know that I care. They know that it matters, and they know we're only bringing cases that have legal merit. And then as to juries, we voir dire them. That means we ask them questions in advance. They're people who are generally honest about how they feel about me, and we've gotten very good responses. So I'm not worried, you know, about the love, the hate. I'm about getting justice, and you're only going to get justice for women, I feel, if you're going to be strong, be a strong advocate, and do your homework, which is what we do. And we're there to be supportive of our clients, and because they're so courageous. The least we can do is be there to support their courage.
Do you think most women who are in a really tough situation like that, where they really have been victimized, that they would prefer a woman lawyer?
I don't know whether they prefer a woman lawyer or a man lawyer. I think they prefer someone who's going to be a strong advocate for them and do their homework and get that case prepared and pursue it for them and be honest with them about what the expectations are for their case and do what they can. So that's what I think they care about. But I do think, in the same way that, you know, a lot of women are seeking women gynecologists these days, a lot of women are seeking women lawyers. I'm glad to say there are more and more women lawyers these days than ever before. But find somebody who's within your area of expertise. Depends on what you need. And you know, check out the lawyer before you go to them, and make sure that's a lawyer that is there for you and that has a good reputation and has a record of success. Well, we're out of time. You're great. I mean, we've got a zillion more questions to ask. We'll have to do it again sometime, Marlo. We'll have to do it again. And this is the role model and the pioneer right here. Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that we were able to bring Gloria to you, and I hope you got some of your questions answered anyway. See you next time.